Grief has a strange way of sharpening every sound around you. At my mother's memorial, even the soft clinking of teacups felt like thunder inside my skull. I stood near her portrait, the one where her smile was gentle but exhausted, and tried to steady my breath. But the room wasn't letting me grieve. The room was watching me. Family members I had known my entire life walked past me without a glance, whispering to each other instead of offering condolences. Their eyes didn't hold sympathy, only suspicion. As if my mother's death had opened a door they'd been waiting years to walk through. Then my Aunt Lillian, my mother's sister, glided toward me. She wore a black dress far too elegant for mourning, and her perfume was so strong it stung my nose. She leaned in close enough that her breath warmed my ear and whispered the sentence that froze my heart, "You don't belong in this family." A hollow ache opened inside my chest. I turned to her, confused, shaken, but she simply walked away, her heels echoing across the hall like punctuation. I didn't know it then, but that whisper was only the beginning. My mother had left behind more than grief, she had left behind a truth sharp enough to cut our entire family in half. My mother, Helena Carson, was the kind of woman who stitched peace into every room she entered. Soft-spoken, gentle, endlessly patient. She raised me alone after my father died in an accident when I was 6, or at least, that was the story she told everyone. Growing up, people often wondered why none of my mother's relatives ever visited us, why holidays were always quiet, why my cousins never slept over, or why I never attended family gatherings. She used to smile and say, "Some families love from a distance." I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Distance was the only way she could protect me. She worked as a seamstress in a downtown boutique, making wedding gowns for brides who treated her like a service instead of a human. Yet she never complained. Our home was small, our furniture old, but she gave me warmth no mansion could offer. I thought her side of the family lived far away. I thought the reason they never visited was geography, not choice. I was wrong. Because the day after she died, an avalanche of people I barely recognized showed up, cousins wearing jewelry too expensive for their intentions, uncles with eyes that measured value instead of grief, and Aunt Lillian, the unofficial matriarch whose approval was a currency in itself. They took over everything. The funeral arrangements, the guest list, the flowers, even the food that was served. I felt like a visitor in my mother's own memorial. The strangest part, none of them showed even a flicker of sorrow. They hovered around the will-reading table like vultures around a dying animal. That's when I noticed something else, something quiet but powerful. Every time I walked near them, they lowered their voices. Every time I asked a question, they changed the topic. Every time I looked at them, they looked away. I told myself it was grief. But then Aunt Lillian whispered those words, "You don't belong in this family." And suddenly everything felt staged. That night, when the memorial finally ended, the lawyer handling my mother's estate approached me privately. He was an old friend of my mother's, someone she trusted deeply. He looked nervous, the kind of nervous that belongs to someone holding a secret they didn't want to carry. "There's something your mother left for you," he said carefully. "Something she insisted should only be opened once you were alone." He handed me a small sealed box and an envelope with my name in my mother's handwriting. My hands trembled. I didn't open it. Not yet. Something told me I needed distance, silence, oxygen. Little did I know, once I opened that box, nothing in my life, or in my family, would ever be the same again. I reached home just before midnight. The sky was a deep navy blue, and the quiet outside felt like a reprieve from the suffocating whispers at the memorial. The box sat on my kitchen table like a weight. Not physically, it was small, light, but emotionally, it felt as heavy as a lifetime. I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in my mother's delicate script. The first sentence stole the breath from my lungs. "My love, if you are reading this, they have already come for what they think belongs to them." I paused, gripping the paper so tightly it wrinkled. She wrote about her family, the Carsons, and how their wealth had always relied on controlling every member within it. How daughters were arranged into strategic marriages. How inheritances were negotiated behind closed doors. How secrets were currency, and loyalty was enforced with cruelty. Then came the part that shattered every truth I knew. I left that family for one reason, to keep you safe from the man they wanted me to marry. My heart thudded. My mind spun. Your father was not an accident. He was the one I chose. And for that, the family decided you should never exist. I had to stop reading. Tears blurred the ink. My mother had carried this alone, all these years, she continued. If they're whispering around you now, it's because they know I left something behind. Something they want. Something worth millions. Millions? I blinked hard. I had grown up counting coupons for groceries. How could my mother possibly have millions? That's when I opened the box. Inside were documents, dozens of them, all neatly organized. Land deeds, shares, investment certificates, property titles. My mother, the quiet seamstress who came home every night smelling of fabric and thread, owned more land than the entire Carson family combined, and all of it was in my name. My mother's letter explained everything. The Carsons had amassed generational wealth through manipulation. But my mother had secretly withdrawn her rightful share, the inheritance she was supposed to surrender when she refused the arranged marriage. Instead of giving it back to them, she invested it quietly, secretly, intelligently, in renewable energy land, private forests, tech startups, small properties that turned into big developments. She built an empire they didn't know existed, and she left it to me, but the part that chilled me, they will not let you keep it. Lillian has waited 25 years to take back what she thinks is hers. She will destroy you if she must. I dropped the letter. Suddenly, everything made sense, the cold stares, the whispers, the way they hovered over the lawyer, and Aunt Lillian's cruel sentence, you don't belong in this family. What she meant was, you don't belong with what we want. My phone buzzed, jolting me, a text from an unknown number, return what she stole. Before it's too late. My blood turned to ice. I wasn't imagining it, the war had already begun. The next morning, a knock shook my front door hard enough to rattle the frame. When I opened it, Aunt Lillian stood there, no smile, no softness, just eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She didn't enter. She didn't ask. She simply stepped inside like she owned the air in my home. I know what she gave you, she said, her tone calm but venomous. It's not yours. It was never yours. I stayed silent. Her gaze drifted across my kitchen until it landed on the open box. She exhaled sharply. So she told you everything. I folded my arms. She told me the truth. Lillian's jaw tightened. The truth? Helena was delusional. Running from responsibility. Running from her duty. The Carsons built everything she had. And she owed everything back. I shook my head. She owed them nothing. She owed us you, she snapped. You were supposed to be raised in our world, in our structure. But she ran. She hid. And she stole millions in the process. She took what was hers, I answered. Lillian stepped closer, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper. That money belongs to the family. Not to the daughter of a man who shouldn't have existed. My stomach turned. So this was the real reason they hated me. Not because I was different, but because I wasn't supposed to exist at all. She leaned in. Sign the transfer documents. Walk away. And maybe we'll let you keep the house. Or what? I whispered, her eyes hardened. Or you'll regret choosing a dead woman over the family that created her. She turned to leave, but something inside me, something I didn't know I had, snapped awake. I wasn't my mother. I wasn't soft. I wasn't obedient. I wasn't afraid, not anymore. You don't get to threaten me in my own home, I said, my voice steady, low, powerful. My mother protected me from you. But I'm not running. Lillian froze. I walked to the table, picked up the stack of deeds, and held them close to my chest. These lands are mine. These shares are mine. Her legacy is mine. She turned slowly, her face cracking with rage. You foolish girl. You have no idea what you're fighting. No, I said. You're the one who has no idea who you're fighting. I'm my mother's daughter. And she didn't raise someone weak. For the first time, Lillian's confidence faltered, just slightly. Just enough. She left without another word, but I wasn't relieved, because I knew silence from someone like her wasn't peace, it was preparation. The night everything turned. At 2:14 a.m., someone tried to break into my house. The sound of the back window shattering jolted me awake. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and hid behind the kitchen counter, dialing emergency services with shaking fingers. Heavy footsteps creaked across the wooden floor. Someone was inside, a man, tall, broad-shouldered, stepped into the dim light. I recognized him immediately. My cousin Marcus. Lillian's son. A man who had always spoken with the confidence of money he assumed was guaranteed. He searched the kitchen drawers, then the shelves, then moved toward my bedroom. He was looking for the documents. I clutched the box tightly to my chest, backing away slowly, silently, until my spine hit the wall. He turned, and our eyes met. In that instant, time fractured. His expression wasn't anger. It wasn't guilt. It was entitlement. Pure, unfiltered entitlement. This doesn't belong to you, he said, stepping toward me, but before he could come any closer, red and blue lights flashed across the windows. Sirens erupted down the street. Officers stormed in through the front door. Marcus didn't have time to run. They tackled him to the ground so violently the entire house shook. One officer approached me. Are you hurt? I shook my head. No. Just done. And I meant it. I was done being hunted. Done being quiet. Done being afraid. The courtroom. 2 weeks later, I faced the entire Carson family in court. Lillian glared at me like I had destroyed her empire, which, in a way, I had. The lawyer presented my mother's investments, her withdrawal records, her ownership rights, and her final will, leaving everything to me. One by one, every accusation the Carsons made collapsed under the weight of documented truth, but the most powerful moment came when the judge read my mother's statement. I give everything I own to my daughter because she is the only one who never asked for anything except love. I closed my eyes as tears streamed down my cheeks. I didn't cry because I won. I cried because my mother had loved me more fiercely, more bravely, and more deeply than I ever realized. The Carsons lost everything. Their claim to the inheritance. Their hold over the estate. Their legal right to harass me again. Lillian's expression when the judge dismissed her petition was the most satisfying moment of my life. She looked small, smaller than I ever imagined. 6 months later, I stood in front of my mother's grave with a bouquet of lilies, her favorite. The air was warm. The sky was clear. And for the first time in years, I felt peace humming beneath my ribs. I did it, Mom, I whispered softly. I finally understand why you kept me away. Why you hid your past. Why you carried your secrets alone. The wind rustled through the trees, almost like an answer. I sold half the investments she left me, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted freedom. I used the funds to open a community center in her name, the Helena Foundation, a safe place for women starting over. It offered legal aid, housing support, therapy, and financial literacy. My mother had been trapped once. I would spend my life helping others escape their own cages. The rest of the properties, I kept them. Not out of greed, but because they were hers. And because she wanted me to have a life that wasn't shaped by fear. As for Lillian and the rest of the Carsons, they disappeared from my life entirely. No more threats. No more whispers. No more claims. Just silence, glorious, peaceful silence. Sometimes people say family is forever. But my mother taught me a different truth. Family is not who you're born into. Family is who protects you when the world turns cruel. Family is who chooses you, and she chose me, every day of her life, every breath of her struggle, every line of her will. I placed the lilies on her grave, touched the stone gently, and whispered the final words she never got to hear. Thank you for fighting for me. Now it's my turn to live for you.